Do you think investors are the problem in Canada's real estate market? Do me a favor, please press pause right now and let me know in the comments before watching the rest of this video. After all, according to Better Dwelling, 1 in 6 Canadian homeowners own multiple properties. And those same Canadians own as much as 41% of the total housing stock in some provinces. And I'm going to tell you about that and more in today's episode of The Real Estate Market is Not What You Think. But before I begin, if you would like to stay up to date on the Surrey and Fraser Valley marketplace, please subscribe to this channel. And it would help a ton if you could click the like button to help get this information out to other people just like you. And of course, if you need personalized advice, go ahead and book a call with me right now using the link in the description below. And now, onto the video. Because so many people think,
Hey, it's those greedy investors. They're the reason I can't afford a home.
and yeah, to be honest with you, I think there's a whole lot to that. After all, every time a home is bought up by an investor, there are less properties for sale for actual homeowners and end users. And then that property moves out of the ownership market and into the rental stock until, well, maybe it's sold again or that owner takes possession for themselves. But is this just a pandemic issue? Because, well, I bought a condo for investment during the pandemic, something I have done before, but this time it was because of the super low borrowing rates. And it appears that, well, a lot of other Canadians did the same thing as me. Because in 2021, CMP put out an article that says about 10% of Canadians surveyed own at least 2 properties. And just a year later, B&M Bloomberg says that that number increased to 19% in a survey of their own. So yeah, it looks like maybe investors are to blame. But recently I was watching an episode of the Canadian Real Estate Show on YouTube, the best Canadian real estate podcast in the country that airs at 4 p.m. Eastern on Sundays. And second only to the actual best Canadian real estate podcast, The Tom Story Show. The Canadian Real Estate Show podcast hosts TK and Daryl had a great panel of mortgage professionals on that day, one of which was Vince DeGatno, who you may have seen previously on channels like B&N Bloomberg. And in the mortgage world, well, he's a pretty big deal. Now, I'll link that full episode down below in the description so you can watch it for yourself. But I wanted to play a clip of what Vince said on that show because he was actually consulted by the current Liberal government about real estate investors. And well, let me just play the tape so you can hear the story for yourself.
Yeah, this actually, if I can jump in here, Dale, this is a question I'd love to ask the 3 guys who have way more experience than I do. So we've seen a lot more cosigners come on. Obviously, the gifting thing that, there was news articles about that. But the co-signing, I have looked Stats Canada, CMHC, all the big banks, and I can't find, and maybe I'm just ignorant here, but I can't find any information on what I would consider a drastic increase in people co-signing for properties. And I'm wondering if that's something that you guys have seen as well.
You know, Nick, I'm going to tell you a quick story. 2 Christmases ago, Minister Hassan was appointed Minister of Housing from Immigration, I believe. And a buddy of mine called me up. He said, Vince, I want you to come to my office. I want you to meet somebody. I want you to talk to them. And I walked in his office and Minister Hassan was there. He had just gotten his mandate letter from the Prime Minister. And I'd read it before I'd gotten there. And his mandate was to go after investors, right? At the time, this is
a few years
December
before
21. Okay.
Yeah, okay.
So Peter says, Vince, talk to him about what we talked about last week because it's really important. And I said, I understand you're going after investors. And he goes, yeah, it's a big concern. It's gone from 12% to 26% in the last several years, since 2008. And I said, well, I'm going to tell you something. That's bullshit. It's bullshit because in the fall of 2018, the stress test came out. And all of a sudden, every broker on this panel saw an increase in application flow where 2 people on title was the norm, went to 4, 3, 4. We saw multiple people on title because young folks had to get cosigners. And the definition of an investor is someone who has more than one property. And a lot of
Exactly, yeah.
parents that go on,
Ah,
they go on as a 1% beneficial owner.
right.
I said, so your fucking stats, this stress test has created an unintended consequence. So your analysts are saying, holy shit, there's a lot of people that own multiple properties. But why don't you ask them to filter through their land registry? Because you
Yeah.
could see who's on title and you could see their birth dates. And you could, I'll bet dollars to donuts that most likely there's a 25 to 30 year age gap between people on title.
So yes, it could very well be that the stress test is actually causing the stats to look like investors are buying up the market and also driving up prices. However, there is a very solid argument that a good portion of that is just concerned and caring parents trying to help out their kids. So now I would love to ask another favor. Please go ahead and pause this video for a second time to let me know if you think this is a possible cause of these stats jumping so quickly, or if you think investors like me are the real problem. And now, after pressing play again, please remember to also press subscribe, click the like button, and we'll see you in a couple of days.